WuWa 2.8 banners are looking stacked, so today I'm here to help you decide who to spend your precious Astrites on. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Chisa is our first contender, so she is pretty straightforward. She is a great third slot teammate for negative status teams. However, if you have the free alternatives of Rover, which everybody has, or you're able to free up your Shorekeeper for your negative status team, then you honestly don't really need to pull for Chisa all that much. She is a nice niche upgrade, and she can make your teams a little bit stronger in that aspect. However, she is far from a necessary pull, and is mostly just a nice premium investment that you can make. Not the strongest premium investment. Make sure that you get that respective negative status applicant first. However, if you're completing your negative status team, and you're looking to free up your current first slot teammate for another team, well then Chisa is going to end up being a good pull for you. She is also a universal negative status character. This means that while she does apply Havoc Bane, what she offers to negative status teams can apply to any negative status. So that means that she's good for all currently existing negative statuses, and she will be good for future existing negative status teams. Don't pull her now waiting for the future though, because keep in mind that Kuro Games always rerun supports when they gain new relevancy, so keep that in mind. However, she does indeed have potential to be even better in the future. She's able to do a little bit of personal damage with her Havoc Banes, but for the most part, she's going to be buffing for your negative status team. She will be best in slot for both Zani and Cardathea, even if not by much. However, she is going to be especially nice for Cardathea mains. It should also be noted that if you don't have Phoebe but you do have Zani, no, Chisa is not going to fix your problem. Also, Phoebe's going to be running on her banner anyway, so just go for her instead. However, if you have Cardathea but no Shakona, yes, Chisa can help make your Cardathea feel playable. Not strong, not anywhere near as good as if you did have a Shakona, but at least playable. So Chisa does have that use case. I will say that she's not necessarily some super high value pull, and she is definitely skippable for a large majority of people. However, there is value to be found here, and if you really want her, you can justify getting her. Not by much, but you can justify it. I will say that I personally expect her to gain more value in the future, and she's mostly being made ahead of time. I suppose it's just with the negative status teams that we currently have in the game, she just isn't that strong with them. However, there is always a chance for that to change down the line. For now, I'm going to put her into A tier for the value rankings of this patch. Next up is Phoebe. This is an interesting case because on her own, I wouldn't really suggest pulling for this character anymore. While her own damage isn't bad at all, and she's a really unique unit as she's able to have a dual kit, generally, I feel like you should only be pulling her these days if you're pulling for a Zani support. Now, if you don't have Zani, it is good to get Phoebe first, because then you still get a Spectral Frazzle DPS out of it, and one that's able to self-sufficiently work in TOA. She can work in Whimpering Wastes too if you have Shakona, because Shakona applies Spectral Frazzle in Multi-Wave. However, if you don't, well then she's still going to be a perfectly fine TOA DPS. Her damage just isn't really anything impressive anymore compared to usual DPS standards these days, and I will say that you would rather just get a new DPS instead of investing into Phoebe at this point, but like I said, if you recently pulled for Zani, then you basically have to pull for this character. Her biggest pull value quality these days is the fact that on her own, she is able to provide up to 100% Spectral Frazzle damage amplification to the incoming Resonator, and if you have her signature weapon, that provides an extra 30% on top of that. It is a ridiculous amount of amp, and Zani absolutely loves that. No other character is able to currently contest with what Phoebe is able to provide the Goat Banker Lady. So Phoebe is basically a must pull if you have Zani, but for the average player that doesn't have Zani, and if you're not particularly interested in Zani, well, Absolution Phoebe on her own is a fine DPS, and you can make her work in all game modes with Shakona, but she's not exactly the strongest DPS around. She does still give you very good bang for your buck, and she's also a fantastic beginner pull, because you're able to pair her with Sanhua and Spectral Rover, 2 free units, and form quite a strong team there. So, she's a great beginner pull if you have absolutely nothing on your account right now, keep that in mind. But if you're a more established player, I would say that unless you're planning to invest into Zani later on, don't bother. Now, if you already have Zani, definitely get her, it's not even a question. But if you haven't already invested into this niche, not that it's not worth it, you very much still can do that, and it's good to start with Phoebe so that you don't just pull for a Zani and you don't have any Phoebe to speak of. However, only get Phoebe if you eventually plan to invest into Zani. Phoebe on her own is still a very strong DPS, Absolution Phoebe isn't bad by any means, I just personally don't think that it's worth the investment compared to other DPSs nowadays, unless you plan to invest into Zani later on. It should also be noted that even though she on her own isn't able to work in Whimpering Waste without Shakona, Zani very much can do that, because she doesn't care about Spectral Frazzle constantly being applied on the enemy. She just needs it to be applied on the enemy at some point during the rotation. So because of that, you don't really have to worry about WuWa once you eventually get Zani, because she'll cover for that for you. She is an integral part to the full Spectral Frazzle team core, and I would say that her value is either absolute S+ tier if you play Zani, or it's just A tier, which is where she's going to be going in the value rankings for this patch. Phrolova is literally the strongest DPS in the game right now. Pretty strong start, I know, but she is absolutely amazing, especially after we recently got Choyuan. Her team is amazing whether you're playing her budget or premium. Her premium team is ridiculous, I'll say that. However, her free-to-play team is still very impressive. I would say her biggest flaw is just the fact that she's very sig-reliant, and other weapons don't really do anything near as much for her. However, that aside, she is obnoxiously strong, especially in Whimpering Wastes. WuWa is this lady's playground. You don't even have to try in that game mode if you're using Phrolova. She is so stupidly overtuned there that I personally don't even know if Kuro knows what they were thinking whenever they balanced her there. Actually, I think me suggesting that Kuro Games even balanced Phrolova in Whimpering Wastes is a hilarious statement of the highest order, because oh my goodness, they absolutely did not balance that woman there. She is so freaking broken on all fronts. She is absolutely busted in TOA 3 and 4 because she has a longer rotation, and those chambers also take longer, so they accommodate well for her existing kit. And in general, I think it is ridiculous that even on Havoc Resist content, she still gets top performing scores in Whimpering Wastes. This lady is absolutely insane, and Kuro Games is gonna have a really hard time killing her off. She just kinda is that woman. So, Phrolova is an amazing investment. Now, I will say that sure, I do believe that since we're on the brink of a new region, she could very much be bait, and we very much could be seeing a replacement for her sometime soon. But what I'm gonna say to that is that sure, maybe in TOA, but sure as hell not in Whimpering Wastes. You're never going to have a problem clearing that game mode if you have a Phrolova by your side. It is going to take so long for score creep to get to the point where we're going to need a character on the level of Phrolova and WuWa on average. That just isn't going to happen for a very, very long time. So yeah, Phrolova's pretty broken. I would say that she's an amazing investment. And speaking of investment, she herself doesn't even need all that much to hit the ground running. Yes, you do want her signature weapon, but you very much can use a budget team and still clear TOA and WuWa very comfortably. She's just kind of ridiculously broken at the minute, and I do believe her to be the best DPS in the game currently as it stands. Do I think that title's gonna last much longer? Not necessarily, maybe for a patch or two longer, but she is very good right now, and I do expect that to remain for a while, especially after she literally got another upscale in the form of Choyuan. Absolutely busted character. She's going into S tier for the value rankings of this patch. She is insane. Next up is Cantarella. Okay, so this character is basically, you pull her if you're a Phrolova main, or you don't pull her. It's pretty straightforward, to be honest. You either get her if you own Phrolova, and if you don't have Phrolova, well then there's just no point in getting her. She is very well tailored to Phrolova in particular, and for everyone else, she's just not really that good. She can work with Jinchi, I suppose, but Jinchi's not really a crazy consideration these days. She's fine in TOA, but all around not really that strong of a DPS at this point. And besides, there are other characters you would rather use with Jinchi instead. And outside of that, there is also Donjin, and most Donjin mains like to fly solo anyway. But that aside, yeah, there is Donjin as an option, I suppose. But for the most part, you're gonna be pulling her and using her with Phrolova. And if you're not doing that, well then she's not really gonna be doing much on your account. Now, what I will say is that if you do indeed have the crazy conductor lady, she is an amazing pull, she does provide you quite a bit, and she also makes her insane WuWa scores even better. As if Phrolova needed that, but anyway. And she provides lots of echo skill casts to her. So yes, a fantastic second slot teammate for Phrolova that is definitely not contested by anybody. Yes, there are definitely budget replacements for her, but she is definitely the best in slot there. But the thing is, she is so niche, and she's not really a second slot teammate that you can apply anywhere else. Whenever you pull a character like Brand for triple fusion, you can use that character in many other locations, and it wouldn't be a weird thing to do because he's just very strong in many different teams. However, in Cantarella's case, you're basically only pulling the Jellyfish Lady for Phrolova, and that's it. So I would say that if you have the DPS that she is good for, who is the best DPS in the game in fairness, so it is a relevant character, she is a relevant support, just keep in mind that she's not really going to be doing anything else on your account, and if you don't have Phrolova, then I can't really recommend her. I'm gonna put her into B tier for the value rankings of this patch, But I would say that if you have Phrolova, she could go up to A tier. But if you don't, well then let's just say she's a B tier. Buling is a pretty simple character. You're basically only going to be using her with Carlotta, and that's basically it. She is going to be, honestly, not too bad for a 4-star. It's nice that we have one that is an actual option, and she is going to be a nice 3rd slot teammate alternative for Carlotta teams, thus freeing up your 4th slot. So, not bad. Though I wouldn't really go out of your way to go and invest a bunch of sequences into her or go crazy on this banner. She is a 1-off 4-star. She has one particular use case. It is nice that she works there, and I wouldn't really add much else about her. I'm gonna put her into B tier for the value rankings of this patch. I wouldn't really go out of your way to get her. She is good, and she's gonna be a perfectly fine Carlotta 3rd slot teammate, but outside of that, she's just gonna kind of exist. Not a bad 4-star though. Finally, we got somebody good added to the roster as a 4-star. All around, we have some stacked banners this patch. I will say I do think Kuro was baiting us before Laharoi. I don't really think that Phrolova is too much of a bait investment. The rest of them, it just kind of depends. But I'm more so saying that we're going into a new region and they're dropping quite a popular character, so keep that in mind, pull wisely. However, all around, each character of this patch does have their reasons to be used, and we do have a broken DPS coming up this patch, so everybody wins. Hopefully this video was able to tell you who to spend your precious Astrites on in version 2.8. This has been Juice, signing out, and good luck on whoever you're pulling for.